Hello everyone. Today we're going to cover a new mystery composer. And you will just put your comments in this video and write who you think it is and what the mystery piece is. And the first few people to guess right, I just will announce the first names. Don't worry about your whole name being announced. And the live will occur the next week on another Monday. So if I can't make it happen early in the day, which is my goal, it will happen later in the day, maybe in the evening. Okay, so good luck with that, and I hope we can get more people to make some guesses and look this information up. All right, so our mystery composer was born in 1871, and he passed away in 1922. And his first published rag is the one we will be researching, and that was written in 1897. And it was actually written in 1892 before ragtime was introduced to the world in the 1893 World's Fair. And our composer, was born in Savannah, Georgia, and he was the son of John and Lulu. In 1880, the family relocated in St. Louis, Missouri. They operated a livery stable and worked in the entertainment and bar industries. Although he had no formal training, he was a very talented musician. He and his older brother, Charles, invested in the Big Onion Mine Company near Searchlight, Nevada in the late 1880s. Our composer was a big man, and he towered 6 feet and weighed over 300 pounds. And he often played his piano standing up, so he had the piano sitting on blocks. And he daily kept up ragtime composing and saloon keeping responsibilities. He co-owned a theater, gambling establishments, dance halls, and athletic venues with his brother Charles. Next, we will discuss the composer's rags, or pieces, that were published. So the first one is the mystery piece, and that was, of course, in 1897. And then the next one was also the same piece, but it was arranged again by Will Tyers in 1899 with a different cover. And then also in that year, in 1899, was Bowery Buck. In 1900 was Ragtime Nightmare. Then 1903, St. Louis Rag. 1904, the Buffalo Rag. In 1909, it was Siwash, an Indian intermezzo, which was unpublished and assumed lost. And in 1914, the Pan Am Rag, arranged by Arthur Marshall. And in 1917, when World War I started, When Sambo Goes to France. So, talking about the mystery piece, it is one of the very few published pieces anywhere in ragtime's first year. And it was played early as 1892, as we discussed before the Chicago Exposition of 1893, where ragtime was heard for the first time. And in the Bowery Buck Rag, written in 1899, this was still a relatively new form, and it is best known of the melodies in the C section, where supposedly the tune was taken from street organs in St. Louis. These portable devices reproduce their music from either cylinders or continuous rolls of stiff paper. And then in 1900, the Ragtime Nightmare was born, and that was a condensed adaptation of a stage piece by George Lansing, known as Darky's Dream, and a follow-up by banjoist Wes Osman and Fred Van Epps called Darky's Awakening. Then the St. Louis Rag was written in 1903, and this was written for the Louisiana Purchase Exposition. And because of several time and cost overruns, the addition of the 1904 Olympic Games, the fair was delayed nearly a year. As a result, the St. Louis Rag did not have the debut it deserved, but it still did well. As with many of this composer's pieces, it is very challenging. And then talking about the Buffalo Rag, this is a folk rag, and it has an indication of how the composer played ragtime. And it was likely named after a lodge that the composer was a member of. And then finally, the last piece that was published is When Sambo Goes to France in 1918. But there's an alternative title, and that is Italy, France, and England have been fighting a long, long time. And it says it is a World War I era notated music sheet for voice and piano dedicated to the 92nd Division at Camp Funston. And the cover art features a black soldier marching with a rifle over his shoulder. So it sounds like Camp Funston is a parody. Okay, next we will talk about the very famous Rosebud Cafe. And that was located at 2222 Market Street in St. Louis, Missouri. In his early 20s, the composer started a tavern in St. Louis called the Rosebud Cafe. It was a sprawling entertainment complex taking up much of the city block. There were 2 bar rooms, a large room for gambling, and a hotel upstairs. There was a wine room in the back, and it was centered with a raised piano from which the composer often played. One room was designated the Hunting and Shooting Club for those who liked outdoor and indoor sports. And he transformed a small shack into the Hurrah Sporting Club in an alley about a block away as an annex to the Rosebud. The Hurrah membership had a piano, but no bar, and this place was called Chestnut Valley. The composer also used special events to get feature stories in the newspaper. The annual Rosebud Ball, the house label Applegate's Old Rosebud Whiskey, and the 1904 holiday party with the electric Christmas tree, and presents for everyone who attended. All were newsworthy and good for business. The attraction to the Rosebud was its piano music, though. No other place in the district could boast such an array of players. The composer played there regularly, and he was a hero to dozens of ragtime players who plied their trade all over the Midwest. The Rosebud drew them like a magnet. It became their hangout, their workplace, a clearinghouse for jobs in St. Louis and those all over the eastern and central Missouri. The composer knew the value of advertising. During this period, the Palladium was a newspaper in St. Louis, and it often carried ads for the Rosebud, talking about its first-class cafe, pool room, and private dining areas. Players like Joe Jordan and Scott Joplin played there, and Scott Joplin's Rosebud March in 1905 was named for the establishment. With the composition of the mystery composition, the composer became the first American to publish a rag or ragtime song. The Rosebud Cafe eventually closed in 1906. The legacy of the Rosebud Cafe lives on in Scott Joplin's song, of course, the Rosebud March. The original Rosebud Cafe was located downtown in 2220 to 2222 Market Street. A new Rosebud Cafe modeled after the original is now part of the Scott Joplin House State Historic Site at 2658 Del Mar Boulevard. Now in the original place of 2222 Market Street is an FBI building since 2009. The FBI field office first began in 1911 in St. Louis, and this was after the Rosebud Cafe was demolished for urban development in 1906. The composer also opened the famous Jazzland Cafe, which was open for a short time. In the 1920s, he served as deputy constable for the African American community of St. Louis, then as justice of the peace. He likely composed a much higher volume than was published, but those works have been lost to time. His music and the Rosebud Cafe earned him the title Father of St. Louis Ragtime. And that is all for our composer this week. So I hope you can make some comments about who you think it is and what the piece is. And again, I will just post your first name. I will probably say your first name, and you don't have to worry about your whole name being mentioned. Okay, so I will talk to you guys later, and have a great day. Bye.
Okay, time to hit subscribe and like. See you later.